Yeah. And now we're officially starting.
Cool. So, Lena, would you like to share
Yes.
some words at the beginning? Okay.
Yes. So, yeah, I'd love to welcome everyone here. My name is Lena. I'm marketing and partnerships lead at Ultra VC. We invest in an early stage impact-driven founders, and we're trying to bring value to the community and organize some events for founders and founders to be that can be beneficial for them. And yeah, we're very happy to unite forces today with Community Sprints and Vicky Kharlamova to bring you this opportunity to learn about onboarding experience and like analysis. I think you analyze like the majority of top companies, and yeah, it's extensive work that you've done, and I'm very happy that we can bring it to our community and your community. And yeah, so on this note, I would love to give the word to, I think, Dima Ivanovsky from Community Sprints, and then Vicky, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Lena. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Dima, Dima Ivanovsky. I actually ex B2B director at PandaDoc in sales. And as of right now, we are building the company called Community Sprints, where we provide 2-week educational sprints to grow business and professional skills, specifically within sales, marketing, and content. Yeah, and Vicky is one of our actual experts, and together we bring product sprint. Also, I believe Vicky will tell you a bit about it a bit later. So yeah, happy to discuss community sprints later on. But as of right now, Vicky, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Lena. Thank you, Dmitry. Super excited to be here today and to share with you secrets of great user onboarding experience. And let me start so we've already passed the icebreaker. I will share a couple of words about myself and my experience. So I'm a growth advisor for more than 4 years. I'm helping different companies to implement product-led growth and create great user onboarding experience, proper monetization strategy. And I've already worked with 40 plus different companies, including Rask AI, Tascade, PandaDoc, and Grammarly. I also was the founding member of the Mirror Growth team. So I was working on the Mirror Growth for 5.5 years, from a startup to unicorn, leading onboarding and activation, and also working on virality, retention, and monetization. And I'm also a partner of Community Sprints. So I'm an expert there and a partner at Maven. And for the Community Sprints, we are going to launch the new educational product sprints on the product-led growth pretty soon next year. And for Maven, I also have a course on user onboarding. And let's jump into what we are going to cover today. So first of all, we are going to cover the 6 essential steps of effective user onboarding flow. We will also discuss why user onboarding is a foundation of product growth and why all the other steps are just not possible without that. So we will also cover 3 key principles of great user onboarding experience. And for sure, we will check some real-world experiments and examples from my practice at Mira, just to empower all the previous principles and foundations with these examples. And we will also cover summary, Q&A, and we will also have some bonus materials for you. Cool, so let's jump into the question. So how do you think, when does user onboarding start and when it ends? Just feel free to drop your answer to the chat, or maybe you have any idea and you want to unmute yourself. That would be great. And then we compare that with my understanding. So if you've already been working on user onboarding, so the moment they interact with your brand company, nice, I love that. Right from the user comes across the product, agree, cool. Cool. Any other ideas about that? Just feel free to drop them to the chat. Customer discovery and never. I actually love this answer about ending never. So what I could say that the usual user onboarding experience consists of 6 steps, and it usually starts from Google search or ads. And I would even say that it usually starts earlier when the user just first interacted with your product. So it could be some, I don't know, like some ads, some brand stuff, or ads, or like maybe he's seen some ads on the Google search. So when the user just started looking for a solution to solve their problem. And then the next step of the user onboarding is the website, just because it also provides some experience for the user. And then it's coming to registration flow, first session, path to aha moment when the user experiencing the core value proposition of the product. And I would say in the usual way, it ends when the user is like established the habit around core value proposition to the product, stick to the product, and then he's just becoming all the life user of the product. But at the same time, I could say that this is the time when the user onboarding didn't end usually. And it usually ends never. That's real true, because you will helping user to unlock new use cases. You're going to help to onboard your customers. So all that means really that user onboarding never ending process that really supports your product growth. And just one thing. And why do you think that user onboarding is the foundation of sustainable product growth? So just drop the idea. Do you have any idea like why user onboarding matters so much and why it's so important process? You could also like unmute yourself and share your ideas. It makes free users to convert to paid customers. Great. First impression lasts long time. Founders make more data, committed to activation. Yeah, all that really sounds great, and I absolutely support all these ideas about user onboarding as part of the growth and a base of the growth. Let me start from the metric stuff. So this is the analysis and the onboarding report that we run together with our colleague. And what we found out there is that only 30% of the companies mention activation as a metric that they are actually measuring. The activation, this is the metric that is helping us to cover the user onboarding experience. And what we also see that they also use retention metrics to track success of the user onboarding experience. They also use conversion rate to paid, but they also use some specific user actions, and they could somehow correlate with activation metric. And what we could see is that actually, this is in case you go to activation metrics, the usual activation funnel looks like that. I know that maybe a lot of you are pretty familiar with this onboarding metrics. It usually starts with setup moment when the user just made some actions in order to small steps that will help him to experience the core value proposition of the product. For example, just imagine the mirror board. The setup moment could be something like user is landing inside the product, or the user just started to create some content on the board. That's when the user just making some first steps with the product. That is the first steps, but they still matters a lot. Aha moment is usually the next step of the activation funnel metrics, and that means that user experience the core value proposition of the product. In case we talk about Mira, let's imagine that there is several people on the board creating something together, and that's the core value of collaboration. In case we talk about the tool that, for example, provided some analytics, it could be that the user created some dashboards and got some useful insights from the data that he provided to the tool. So that's already the core value of the product. And when we come into the last step, the habit moment. That's mean that user established the habits around the core value proposition of the product. So sometimes it could be some repeatable number of aha moments, for example, 3, 5 times. So for example, like if you're talking about the Mira, there are several collaborative sessions when several people created something useful on the board. Or if we are coming back to the product with analytics, it could be that user created or different users created some dashboards and use it several times and get useful insights, for example, for 5 times. So overall, this activation metrics funnel is something that is being used by a lot of companies. But what I really recommend to start from is like to start from just aha moment, because activation funnel metrics is the framework that you should not use from the early beginning. Let's start simple just from aha moment and only then to make it more complex. And coming back to the question why onboarding is the core of your product growth is that when the user established the habit around core value proposition of the product and try and establish this core value for 3 times, for 5 times, no matter, what we could see is that these users have much higher conversion rate to pay. From my experience working with more than 40 companies, it's about twice or 4 times or even 8 times higher conversion rate to pay. So that really matters, that in case the users had really successful onboarding experience, you will have much more money. So to tell the truth, every experiment in onboarding, you could recalculate and check how much money they will bring you. And it's not only about money, but it's also about retention. So in case the users establish the habit around core value proposition and are activated, what we could see is that their long-term retention, about like 3 months, about like 5 months, also is much, much higher. So just to sum up, it's really important to define your aha moment first, then activation funnel metrics properly, and do work on them on a regular basis, because when you work in that will not only about driving activation, but it's also about driving the future usage of your product and your revenue for that. And let's uncover some key principles of exceptional user onboarding experience. I would say when I was creating the list of these principles at the first time, I had about 20, and it was not so easy for me to highlight the 3 ones, but let me start with the most important ones that I really believe that everybody should follow. And the first principle here is that you really need to communicate the main product value. So what's your product about? What is the main value at each step of the onboarding journey? What I could also say here is that in order to drive like improve metrics on the first session, in order to improve habit forming, you really need to start working on that, not on this step, but you should start from the early beginning, from the Google search and ads. And this value communication is one of the great examples, because in case you communicate it properly on every step, it will become much easier for you to activate the user, to get user to the aha moment and get user to the habit moment. What I had is an interesting example. When like a lot of time ago, I was working at Mira, and we've been running some usability tests of the onboarding experience with users. What we found out, why users, for example, didn't invite somebody on the board at Mira, and that was crucial for us to drive aha moment and habit moment, just because that they didn't know that you could invite somebody, and they didn't know that you could invite that for free. And the time that we shoot and started work on that was from the early beginning. So it's not about like saying them that just on the sharing board window, just somewhere in the product, but on the each step of the user onboarding journey. And I also have some example about principle of communicating the main product value. It's a good practice from the FigJam. So they have pretty clear value statement online collaborative whiteboard for teams. So it's like pretty clear, pretty concise, and you just getting that from the early beginning. So just really recommend to check if users, for example, now are looking for your product on the Google, what they see first. If they see the core value or they see just some abstract, if they're getting the idea of what your product is look like inside, and if it helps them to solve the issue. I also have the second principle here, so that's actually my favorite one. Growth is a real system, and their onboarding and activation should align with acquisition and monetization. And it's not only like that, all these parts of the growth should align with each other, and all of them affect each other a lot. And I have here example from my experience at Mira. So it's kind of mistake. So what I've seen that there are a lot of companies working on OKRs, and actually this type of mistake I've seen in 50% of the companies I've been working with. So contradictive OKRs for activation and acquisition. So Mira acquisition team had a KR of number of registered teams, while the activation team had a KR, like key results of percentage of activated teams. So what we could see here is that acquisition team was mostly focusing, like marketing team was mostly focusing on the number of users, while the activation team was mostly focuses on the quality, like quality to make them activated. And these KRs didn't align just because acquisition team tried to make more and more and more users, and the quality of these users was under the question. And no matter what activation team was doing, sometimes the activation metric dropped a lot. So after several discussions, we got to a really good solution that I really think worked great. So we decided to choose a KR of number of activated teams. As soon as it really helps us to start working together with acquisition team, like activation and acquisition, and that also helped us to create a KR that was focused on the one hand on the quality, but on the other hand on the quantity of the teams we have. So what I really believe every company should follow is that when you creating OKRs, think how they affect each other, and when you also plan some backlog stuff and some experiments, especially between activation and monetization. For example, if you're like limiting your business model, if you're adding more triggers to pay, think beyond, because it really could affect activation. And activation is really important part of your product growth. And in case you focus on that and see these potential like problems that could happen, that will really help you to overcome them and build a sustainable growth in your products. And I also have the third principle here, like personalization is a must, especially for horizontal products. I would say that's also one of my favorite principle, because every product, I really believe that every product has really different users, and it's usually like 2, 3, 5 and more personas that are registering your product. And what I've seen that generic onboarding, especially again for horizontal products, that's something that doesn't work. And here I have a small list of criteria you should take into account. I try to prioritize them from my experience. So what I really recommend to start from personalization is like user goal, because it could be different roles, it could be different like experience level, but the first impression really depends on this user goal. And in case you define them successfully, in case you understand how these goals are working, that will really help you to personalize further experience of the user with the product. If you're coming to the role, that also matters a lot, and I will share example right after that. Experience level also a must. For example, when I've been creating user onboarding experience at Mira, we had a lot of users who didn't have a lot of experience with visual tools. So we provided them with more heavy education materials. So there were some videos, tutorials, and other stuff like that. But in case you see that it's pretty experienced designer, for example, we just shared some basic information, not to interrupt user, because in case his experience, why we should over educate this user. Use cases matters a lot, especially in case we are moving to B2B stuff, because it's not only about like end users that are registering with the product, but also like enterprise users, and we usually use them to sell your product to them. But at the same time, use cases, I really like when the product has a lot of them, just because the user goal could be one specific task, but in order to help the user to reach aha moment, user goal could be enough. But in order to create a habit, sometimes you need to know more rather than just one task and one goal, but you need to know like what other use cases, what other tasks user has at his job, in order to onboard user to these use cases, in order to activate and retain the user on regular basis. So company size, for example, how I've been using company size in several products I've been working with. It's like when the company size is defined as a big one, so that could be a potential enterprise customer, and we could suggest this user some personalized demo from sales team or something. At the same time, what I've seen that the company size, sometimes users press just a random number. So I really recommend to use some tools such as like Clearbit or Discover.org that will help you to identify what is the real company size of the user and what's the user role and other information. Because again, in order to make personalization, sometimes you really need to be check information that users are sharing. Country and language, I added that to the end just because sometimes localization of the product could take a lot of time. But at the same time, when I implemented localization for the languages to several products, what I see that Spanish worked really great. So in case you localize the product to the Spanish and there you have a lot of users from South America, so that's something that really works great. And it also worked great when we implemented localization to Mira. And when coming back to personalization, I would recommend to start pretty simple, because personalization could be a really complex model, data science, and some recommendation system, and etc., etc. And at Mira, we started pretty simple. So we created a list of recommended templates for the top most popular, like 5 roles or something. We checked how it worked, and only then we started to implement more complex models. Just because what I've seen that when you really need to check like manually how the personalization worked. So for example, we launched some personalized templates. We've seen that it brought us a lot of value and the metrics increased. That's why we decided that we need to invest into that. Because again, like personalization has a lot of different criteria, and you really need to try it out, see how it works before implementing more complex systems. And let's cover some onboarding experiments that ran at Mira. I would say all these experiments will be definitely aligned with all the principles I shared before, just to see how all these principles are working in practice. So that's one of my favorite experiments. I will share with you why just at the end. So this is the experiment on the registration flow. So the product visuals on the registration flow, and why we decided to run that. Just because what we've seen, again, coming back to communicating main product value on the each step, we found out that users do not finish registration, just because we had this hypothesis that users don't understand what is the product they're registering, what is the value it provided, and everything like that. That's why we decided, we actually also seen it that Slack implemented something like that. So we decided to implement visuals. And you can see here that on the right side, there is a Mira board, but it wasn't the real board. It actually was the animated picture And the core source we're waiving, and what we've seen that, so we really wanted to show the user that there is collaboration inside, and to share that, hey, you really need to invite your team in order to collaborate all together. And like, what results we get? I actually want you to think a little bit, so it won't be the answer from my side right now. So how do you think, what was the result after we implementing the product visuals on the registration flow? So what were the results to the conversion rate to get into the board? What were other results? Any idea about that? Did it work for us or it didn't work for us? Yeah, I see here like more form completions, more team invites, plus 30% conversion rate. Nice. Any other ideas? Did it work for us and how it worked for us? Just let's think a little bit. I know that it's it's evening coming, but anyway, I really like how everybody is positive about the potential impact. Plus 30% to conversion is pretty good.
I think everyone believes in you. Your competence.
Increased conversion rate in daily active users. Yeah, nice. I always love to start with this experiment just because I really believe that the most passion about any experimentation is not always about impact you're getting randomly, but it's more about the learnings that you are getting. So I see one more answer. This question's wrong. Now I think minus 30 conversion rate. That's nice. Decrease registration, increase user who visited. Yeah, let me share the results. I always think that the most interesting is about why. So first of all, we have a decrease in conversion rate getting to the boards. That was the saddest experiment I ever had, just because the visuals were pretty beautiful. We had a lot of Twitter mentions from different chief product officers, head of growth, and others. And we also had a decrease in information completion. So less users started like identifying what's their company size, less users sent invites. And what I actually did, because we really need the fast solution for that, I watched session recordings and I've seen that users just played with these visuals. So they thought that this is the real product. And they just started clicking on that. They were trying to click on the stickies and type some text, but it didn't work. And that's why they just didn't get to the board. So one of the main learnings that we have here is that you should do not over communicate product value with extensive animation, because there we have a lot of like core source and everything. And that's why we decided to make a really fast move. We didn't have a lot of time to experiment further with this flow. That's why we decided to create just white flow, registration flow, and that helped us to increase metrics a lot. That really helped us to increase like getting to the board, increase information completion a lot. And what we did, we actually explained why we need every step of information. And we also like decided to explain more about core value of the product on the website and on the registration page. So when it's working like that, it was a much better solution for us. We decided to move into this stage. So not every solution, even if it's beautiful, even if it solves your hypothesis, it doesn't matter that it will work. And sometimes you really need to be fast and understand the why. Because what I really believe, and I keep repeating that data is something that is showing you what is happening, but it will never show you why this is happening. Only users could tell you that. So session recordings were the fast tool that really helped me to understand why we had this decrease. Cool. We have one more experiment, and again, I will ask you to think a little bit about increase or decrease in metrics and the potential results. So we implemented personalized user onboarding. So previously we had just generic video and tutorial, and you could see that here we created personalized tutorials for top 5 templates. As far as I remember at Miro, we had about like 200 different templates. So it was just impossible to create personalized tutorials for every templates. That's why we decided to start from 5. And we also created like personalized videos for 3 top use cases. And this is just the short, like about 45, 2-minute video. I really recommend not to make it longer because nobody is watching even after 1 minute, 45 seconds. And how do you think, what results did we get after that? And if we had an increase in something, decrease in activation or like start rate of these tutorials, just curious, feel free to drop your ideas in chat. How do you think, like, what was the impact of personalized user onboarding experience improve this time? Maybe you have an idea about I've seen that Dennis had an idea about like specific conversion rate impact. So maybe anybody else also have the idea about what was the impact for conversion rates. Yeah, positive experience. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So here is the example. So that was pretty clear. So tutorial starts rates increased by 25%. We also seen a significant increase in aha moment. So it was about like 10 to 15%. That was pretty high impact. And what we actually seen that we really need to scale this approach and try to make more personalized like templates experience as well as like some videos. And the learning that I get from that is that you really need to start personalization even with small steps. For example, in case you see that you have these templates, you have these use cases, start at least with one, personalize another generic and see how it works, because I've seen a lot of generic onboarding experiences, and in 99% of the cases, that didn't work for the users, especially again, in case your product is pretty generic and the users could do different stuff. Try to implement personalization with the first steps, even if you're just starting to work on your user onboarding experience, because that could definitely make a great impact for you and help you to understand if it's something that is working great, and that will, like, there is high probability that it will work, or you really need to move into other direction, for example. Cool. One more thing that we implemented in the onboarding experience, that's more from the user behavioral stuff. So what we have noticed is that users do not notice white tips on the board. So what you could see on the screenshot on the right, that there is a template, there is a tip that is suggesting user to start some tutorial on this customer journey. But what we've seen that users do not notice these tooltips. They assume that it's the part of the content on the board, or the content of the board just grabbed all their attention. So what we decided to do is pretty simple stuff. So we decided to like make all the tips dark blue in order to make them more noticeable on the board. And what we actually like, this idea came to us after we're running usability tests, and just want to talk a little bit more about the user research you should do on the user onboarding. I really believe that again, like data is showing like what is happening, but only users could tell you why. And in order to create a great user onboarding experience, you need, like in the best case scenario, it's great when you combine different types of research. So first is like usability tests, when you see that the real user is registering the product and like sharing what kind of problems and obstacles this user is having. Interviews with the users who ran through your onboarding like recent time, for example, like 1 week ago, several days ago, in order to ask them about their experience. And in order to complete the full picture, session recordings is really something that could provide you with a lot of insights. The session recordings that I used in order to understand what was the problem with the registration flow, because usability tests, you're still sitting with the user, so it's like not 100% clear information. User interviews after they went through your user onboarding is also not the real-time stuff that and real-time insights that are getting to you. But in case you gather all these 3 different directions, like usability tests, interviews, and session recordings, that will definitely could help you to understand what are the real problems and what exactly you should do with your onboarding. It doesn't matter that you should spend all your time working on the research. I would recommend to start small, but just do it on a regular basis, such as like start every week with registering in your products, watch several session recordings. As far as I remember, Full Story and Inspeclet and Hotjar, they have some sessions recordings for free. So you could also like use the benefits of these tools and run some usability tests, at least on the monthly basis, and several interviews. That will definitely help you to understand how you could empower your user onboarding experience. And the results we got after implementing these dark tips. So we increased in tutorials and video start rate by 20%. That also influenced activation pretty good. And what we also did, and what I really think that works as a system, so we rolled out the whole user experience, like all the users seen now in all different parts of product, dark blue tips, just because we've seen that the impact is pretty good. And that also affected retention and monetization. So I really encourage you to think how you could reuse different insights and learnings from one part of the growth that you're working on, no matter like if it's monetization and activation, to other parts. Because in case you could get some impact in one part and you could scale that, that's great. In case you get some like decrease in metrics and you understand why you got that, you shouldn't repeat that mistake to other parts of the growth and try to overcome them next time. And let's cover the summary. So first of all, we covered like user onboarding is a complex flow, and it consists of 6 steps: search or ads, website, registration flow, first session, way to AHA, and way to habit forming. What we also discussed here, and there were some ideas in chat that I fully support, that user onboarding never ends. And after like activation stage ended, there is a customer onboarding, there is helping user to unlock new use cases. So it's like never-ending education journey. And you should definitely start thinking about user onboarding beyond first session. So it starts much earlier. It ends at least in like when the user established the habit, but it's better think that it never ends, and you need to support user with education on a regular basis. Personalization is the king. So that's one of the core principles of great user onboarding, especially based on user goal, role, and experience level. I would recommend to start again like with user goal and role. But in case your product is not so easy and sometimes users need to be tech savvy, I would also recommend to take into account experience level when personalizing user onboarding. Communication of your main product value proposition consistently and regularly on each step of the user journey, especially on the onboarding. All these 6 steps that we highlighted, that's really, even communication could help you drive your metrics. So again, check it out and see if you're communicating super clearly from the ads, from the website, from the Google search, because that also affects your metrics a lot. Try to find why behind the data. because it will really help you drive your product growth. Again, like what we found out that users are interacted with these different visuals just because there are a lot of animation there, and that's why it's decreased our metrics. And understanding why and these learnings is really something that you really need to gather. For example, I have a lot of learnings, the big base of that from my experience at Mira and from working with other different companies. And that's really something that is helping me to understand user behaviors better. And this is the core of your product growth. And last but not least, growth is a complex system. Think how your changes in monetization affect activation, vice versa. Use some guardrail metrics. For example, when you make some changes in monetization, for example, like you have, I don't know, like you provided to users like for free 5 dashboards, and after that you decided to give them just 2 dashboards for free. Check out how it affected your activation metrics in the short term, mid-term, long term, because all the parts of the growth system really affects each other a lot. And you need to know about these dependencies and make it work into in order to help you drive your product growth, but not vice versa. And there are some really easy steps what you can do right after this session. So like not a lot of effort, just some really easy steps. So first of all, check if you communicate your value proposition consistently on all of steps of onboarding journey. So what's your core value proposition? Like if you're online whiteboard for Teams or any other, if you communicate it on the like Google search, websites, main page and other pages, registration flow, like first session, like other type of communication, such as like onboarding emails and others, and registering your products at least once a week. I really recommend that, and that will provide a lot of insights for you, besides like all other types of research, such as usability tests, interviews, session recordings. And check in industry leaders' products with great user onboarding. And I will help you with that, because one of the bonuses that I prepared for you as a board is analysis of the top 13 user onboarding flows from industry leaders such as like Headbase, Mira, Airtable, Quora, Duolingo, and others. And I also prepared one more bonus for you. So it's user onboarding report. It's comprehensive research from like gathering insights from more than 80 different international products. And I really believe that it will also provide a lot of value for you and help you to build a world-class user onboarding experience. And before we jump into Q&A, I would tell a couple of words about the sprint that we are going to launch with community sprints. So next year, together with Dima, Alex, and others, so community sprint team, we are going to launch the sprint on product-led growth. And we are going to cover like user onboarding, activation, and monetization business model. And I'm going to share the short form. So in case you want to know more about this sprint, in case you want to get information as soon as we launch it, just feel free to fill out this form, and we will let you know and provide you with some discount as soon as the sprint will be launched. Cool. So thanks everybody, and happy to hear your questions about user onboarding, product growth, and product management. I actually seen some questions in the chat.
We had.
What is the best way to get users to talk to me, to actually get them to user interviews? Yeah, that's really nice question. So what I really recommend to start from is like, if we talk about usability tests, for example, I really recommend to think like, what's the what's your key persona and where this persona, like people are usually like what they are using, if they're using some groups on the Facebook, on the LinkedIn, and any other places, and try to do it for free first and ask them to spend like about at least 20 minutes on the usability test. It really matters a lot how you share where you're going to share this message and what the message will look like. So what we really recommend is to writing that not from the company, but sharing that, hey, I'm a founder or I'm a product manager, like, and I'm running interview. It won't take a lot of time, just like 20 or 25 minutes maximum. And that will help us to do this, and this. Try to do that and try to start gathering your potential base of the interviewees from the early beginning. In case you see that it didn't work for you and nobody wants, and I would say it usually works pretty good in case you want users for just about like 20 or 25 minutes. And I really recommend not to make it more. So like you start with that. In case you see that it didn't work, you could try with some additional like compensation, such as Amazon gift card with a small one or other stuff. But again, I would not recommend to start from the gift cards because usually it works pretty good even without that, in case you set it up for 20, 25 minutes and make it personalized and share like why it's pretty valuable for you. Cool. I said a lot of thanks. Any other questions? Thanks for writing that. Thanks for your feedback.
Maybe while they
excuse me,
thinking.
can I ask you a question?
Oh, okay.
Sure.
All right, sorry. Well, my name is Max. I want to ask you, do you have, or can you show us, or at least tell us about, do you have some statistics that show what is, like, how does a good user onboarding or well-organized onboarding affect sales? Because well, if you have a product, you have to sell it. So when and how should I focus? How much time should I spend on the right user onboarding to sell more? Do you have some information, for example, that you can tell us about, like regarding your previous projects or something like that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a nice question. I would also ask a question like back to you just to clarify some stuff. It really depends on the like business model you have. So for example, in case you're selling some stuff to the enterprises, that's one case, and the role of the user onboarding is like one case. But in case it's more like self-serve like business model, the role of the user onboarding is pretty different. So could you share a little bit more so I will provide you a better answer?
It would be better if you can like just choose one of the business models just as an example.
I could elaborate on both of them, by the way. So like if we are talking about self-serve user onboarding, so when the user is registered by himself, like without any interaction with sales and others, and what I see is that users who have great user onboarding and activation journey, they have again like 2 times to 8 times higher conversion rate to pay. So the impact to like conversion rate to pay is pretty clear, from 2x to 80x based on my experience, and that matters a lot. So I would, in this kind of model, I would recommend to start first working on user onboarding experience and only then experiment with monetization, because nothing will happen with the monetization in case your user onboarding is not great. In case we are coming back to the like enterprise sales, so when there is no self-serve like business model here, I would really recommend to start user onboarding right after, like So first you're running this demo, you see the biggest problem that users are facing. And so at this time, in case you see that there are a lot of problems and the product is not self-explanatory enough, that's also the time that you need to support further usage with user onboarding. So actually, like, to sum up, no matter like if you're self-serve or if you're like sales-driven and enterprise, in both ways you will need self-serve user onboarding experience. But in the self-serve model, it's a little bit more important just because user won't get any support from any person. In the enterprise, users could get some support from the sales, from the like special support, but you still need a self-serve user experience onboarding. Did I answer your question, or you want
thank you. Just one more question, if I may.
Sure.
Did you have a team, or like how many people do you need? For example, if you have a company and you have let's say 100 people, and you sell some product, let's say some IT product or something like that. How much people do you need to manage these flow, these user onboarding? Do you need like one specialist, one guy with the right experience, or do you need to have like, you know, a team of people who think about this and manage these like as a separate workflow or pipeline?
That's a great question. So I could share a little bit more from my experience and then share my opinion about that. So when I joined Miro, and it was a startup of like 50 people, and I was the only growth product manager working on user onboarding, monetization, retention, virality, templates, everything. And after that, we realized that onboarding and activation is so important part, and we really need to focus on that more. So after that, I was like focusing most of my time on that with 2 engineers and 1 designer. And that was pretty enough for that time. When I was leaving Miro, there were 2 teams working on user onboarding experience, and there was also a separate team of mine working on the templates. So I would say it really depends on the stage of the product. But in order to start, I would really recommend to have 1 PM, 1 designer, or at least like part of the PM, part of the designer, like half, and 1 engineer that will be focused on that. And that will, like, you will see how it's working. But I won't recommend to start from the big team from the early beginning.
Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And regarding the questions about the follow-up email, I mean, artifacts and bonuses, they will be in follow-up emails, and I hope that we will send them by the end of this week. Yeah, so.
Yeah, any other question? Just feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, Viktoria. Thanks so much for
Hi.
the presentation. Very structured, very interesting. I had a question, if that's okay, about the aha moment. Can you tell a little bit more? What is usually the practice of identifying what would be the aha moment?
Mm-hmm.
Would it be several of them, or is just usually one?
Yeah, let me share my slide just to make it easier to explain. So what is the usual practice is that if we are talking about the startup that want to identify aha moment, what I really recommend is to like ask the team, interview the team, what do you think is the main value proposition of the product and the main value users are getting, and also ask users about that and write a couple of hypotheses and start tracking these metrics and see how it correlates with monetization. In case we talk about the full activation funnel metrics, again, like I don't recommend to start implementation for that. I really recommend to start implementation just from a hub. What is the usual ways that you're like moving vice versa? So you start with defining the habit moment, and you're writing several hypotheses and checking the correlation and causation with long-term retention, such as like 3 months or 6 months, and checking the correlation and causation with monetization. So, for example, you defined your habit moment. Then you're going back and defining several hypotheses for your aha moment, and also checking correlation and causation with habit moment. Then you define aha moment, and then you're like writing several hypotheses for setup moment, and also checking like correlation. But again, starting just with a aha moment, because the system itself, I really believe that every framework should be customized by every company, because I was implementing this activation funnel metrics framework to about like 20 companies. And I also like was doing it with my hands at Miro. And the common mistake that I also like faced, that you could like make these metrics too, I would say, too inspirational rather than just practical. So you really need to see how you could drive them. You really need to see how they work for about like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. In case you see that you understand how to drive this metric, in case you see that they are working on practice, that's great. But do not hesitate to iterate with them. I personally iterated 3 times or 2 times so with this framework at Miro. Just because, again, we started that they were too inspirational rather than practical.
Okay, right. So habit moment is more something like an action, that they perform. An aha moment is something like, can you track aha moment in something like a specific action, or it's more like in general what they
Definitely an action. It's all about action. So for example, setup moment, again, like if we are coming back to Miro, like setup moment, it could be some like getting to the board or content creation or something like that. Aha moment, it's about collaboration, as well as like habit moment, it's also about collaboration. But the case here is habit. It's usually several times aha moment, and you need to define how many times.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah. Any other questions you have?
I have a question. It's mostly about like onboarding for the new but very important features. I want to ask if there are some like additional insights or concepts on this topic, because like when it's a new major feature, from time to time you are limited in terms of personalize it. And you also have a user who also have some habits by using your product, and how to craft it properly to give our users insights on the topic that there are something new, but not disturbs and interrupts them from their like regular and habit of using your product.
Thanks for the question. That's really great, because I also believe that feature onboarding is also a really important part of like holistic onboarding experience. And from my practice, what I've seen that you really need to use different channels in order to onboard users to specific features, and also try to align all different like communication. Because one of the biggest mistake that I've seen in more like in the bigger products, that there are a lot of tool tips, a lot of like tutorials and everything happening to users like that, and it's just not possible for the user to focus on the job he came to the product to do. So what I really again recommend to do is to use different channels, such as like emails, such as like promote some big launches on the website, such as like what I also seen and really love, that a lot of products such as like Miro, Asana, Canva, and others, they have this learn center where you could see some like some updates inside the product, and you could check them on a regular basis, and you could promote it, but not proactively just pushing some tooltips to the user, but making a small icon that, hey, there is something new, check it out in case you have time and in case you have some like desire to do so.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other question, just feel free to drop it in chat or like unmute yourself.
So many people stay and no one is asking questions. Then why are you staying?
Maybe everybody's waiting for the bonus materials.
Yeah, but bonus materials will definitely reach you on your emails. Please wait for the follow-up email, as well as the list of Christmas movies for those who later.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Looking
Yeah, I
forward
will
to that.
definitely do that, and because it's a fun thing to do and I love fun stuff.
Yeah, anyway, I think that in case anybody will have any questions, just feel free to reach me out on the LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there and happy to cover more of your questions there as well.
Excuse me, may I ask another, like the last
Sure,
quick question?
sure.
Does it make sense to have some user onboarding, processes, features in the company that sell services, not products? Does it make sense? Do you have any experience with that? What do you think about this?
Could you explain it a little bit more, like about, what do you mean about services?
For example, I don't know, architecture studios, recruitment companies, something like that, like Randstad, everywhere in Poland, and so on.
Yeah, got it. You mean
because
just
there is a difference between product companies and service companies. It's like,
yeah, that's a great question. I would say that let me remember. I really believe that so I had such experience with some services, more like a platforms where different experts providing their services for the companies. And what really matters there is not only to think about, especially if you're building a platform, to think not only about the onboarding of the like one like, for example, the companies and the onboarding of the potential like experts that providing their services, but also think and taking into account how you're going to onboard this collaboration of these experts. But overall, what I could say is that if you're providing services, what I also seen that search really matters there. I mean, the search experience. So how fast you can find the needed service, how fast you could find the expert that you need, how fast you could find any other information. So search is the most powerful tool, and you really need to use it a lot in your onboarding experience and understand how different people are searching. So if you're using, for example, different structure, such as like type of the service, like filters or any other, or if they're using just regular search, I would say that's real important. And the speed of the answer. So the speed of the answer for the service, the speed of the answer like of the experts really matters here a lot, especially when the user is just onboarding and he's just getting the service for the first time. So that's also one of the things that you need to think about. So it's definitely not only about the like different tooltips, but it's about, I would even say that the best onboarding when you don't need any tooltips and your product is self-explanatory. So that is like that. But again, when you are creating the onboarding for the service, search and like speed of the answer matters a lot.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess people are waiting for us to finish this meeting. Actually, they said it in comments. And we're happy to do that, right, Vicky?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Again, like feel free to drop more questions on the LinkedIn. Happy to cover them. And don't forget to fill out the form from Community Sprints in order to get a special offer for the sprint we are going to launch next year on the product-led growth.
Yeah. Thank you. And yeah, expect to hear from us soon. And good holidays ahead of you.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Have a great holiday. Bye.